Hello, everyone. Welcome to Divas, Diamonds, and Dollars podcast. I think the name says it all. This is a conversation for the women who have lifestyle goals, and we want you to have better financial savvy and all the necessary components for life well lived. Now, today we have a special episode from our signature series, Voyager Interviews and 10 Questions and the Expert Answers that can change your life. Now, I'm excited to have you meet my guest today. Her name is Debbie Ternes. She is a confidence coach. Debbie is a seasoned confidence coach, master certified fearless living coach, inspiring speaker, and mentor with over 16 years of experience. She is the co-founder of Authentic Friendships, a community for women. She helps her clients build their confidence, realize new possibilities, and have powerful transformations that impact their relationships, careers, and lives. Debbie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me today. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Now, I don't want this to be an inquisition, but as the title says, 10 questions and expert answers. So let's get to it, shall we?
Yeah, let's.
So I'm sure that when one hears the word confidence, certain visuals, probably even specific people come to mind. Mm-hmm. But for the purposes of our conversation today, can you give us a framework as relates to career and business, perhaps? How would you define confidence?
For me, confidence is being able to make decisions and feel really strongly about them, being unwavering in things. You might do things scared, but still have the confidence to know that you're headed in the right direction and that whatever goes maybe sideways, that you can take care of it and, change things along the way.
Awesome. I know you mentioned sideways. Nothing ever goes sideways, does it? So, actually, I'm interested to learn because being a confidence coach, to me, that's a very specific niche. So why were you drawn to this particular area of supporting women?
I think for me, feeling confident about doing things is really important because it's so easy. As you said in my intro, right? I'm a master certified fearless living coach. Fear gets in the way of a lot of things that we do. And the flip side of that really is having the freedom and the confidence to make choices that are in alignment for us. So it gives you kind of, excuse me, when we look at where's the fear showing up, what can we do? How can we behave? How can we show up in a more confident way? Now, sometimes I know they say fake it till you make it, right? Sometimes that is a requirement, but really being able to identify where the fear is showing up so that we can make a different choice is really where the confidence shows up. So for me, being a confidence coach feels more empowering and more positive focused than the fearless aspect of it, right? Really being able to conquer all the fear and figure that out. So for me, that's really how it came about.
Sounds like you're taking a deep dive in your conversations. I'm to be a fly on the wall. So, I'm curious, it's been said that a lack of confidence is detrimental to women, especially in the workplace. And I'm just wondering, why do you think it's important? Why is having, I don't say the right confidence, the right amount of confidence? How do we say that? Why is that important for women?
It's important so that we can feel, I'm going to say, like, from my own experience and from working with clients, right? It really is about feeling like we are contributing, that we play an important role, that we feel respected and seen and heard and valued. And so how does that pertain to being more confident? I think it's allowing ourselves to accept that is part of the confidence building as well, right? Being able to see ourselves as leaders, as decision makers, as support personnel, right? To know that what we're doing is important and we can feel that as well.
That's very interesting because it sounds a lot like this topic that has been buzzing around in my head for where are we? At least the last month, just as, there's a lot going on. And what you're saying sounds very much like, we went to school and we learned these things and then we forgot about them, but it seems to have come back. And I'm just relating this to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you familiar with that?
A little bit, yeah.
Philosophy, if you were. So to your point about feeling heard and seen and, contributing, that contribution was an interesting aspect. So thank you for pointing that out. Now, you touched on it a bit, so I'm just going to ask you, maybe you want to expand on it, but we've all read the advice, fake it till you make it. So what are your thoughts on this? Is this harmful or helpful?
Here's how I see it as helpful. If it's giving you courage and inspiring you, I think it's helpful. If it's giving you space to beat yourself up or to cut yourself down or any of those things, it's not helpful. So one of the things that I read years and years ago, right, was dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. And that really is kind of how I see it as being a helpful piece of advice, because people will see you differently. Chances are you're going to embody that and show up differently if we're looking to do something that's outside of our comfort zone. It really is kind of the practice run of what's it like to be there. What's that feeling, right? It's all about the law of attraction, right? Like, let's pretend, let's try this on and see what happens. Do I like the way it feels? Do I not like how it feels? What do I want to be different? Is this in alignment or not in alignment? Because sometimes when we try things out, try things on, right? It's a better gauge of whether it's in alignment for us or not.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, this is slightly different, but somehow related to some degree. But the other side of the other ism that we get a lot is feel the fear and do it anyway. Now, to some degree, fear can be a protection mechanism. It keeps us out of trouble.
Absolutely.
But sometimes it does not. But should we push through our fear? What are your thoughts on this advice?
As it pertains to fear, I think, again, like, you got to unravel it and unpack it a little bit, right? Like, what is the fear? Is it something that's dangerous? Let me just back up for a second. So I love the way that you framed, fear keeping us safe, right? Because the job of fear really is, whether it's a feeling or an experience, the job of fear is to prevent us from having those bad feelings again. So it really is like a protection for us. Now, staying in that protection isn't necessarily going to help us grow and expand in our lives. So it's really about looking at it and asking it, right? Like, what is it protecting us from? Is it protecting us from feeling rejected, getting hurt? Or is it preventing us from our own growth? So then we get to decide, do we want to set it aside and march forward anyway? Or do we want to maybe look at it a little bit more and keep going anyway? It might mean that it might even be like an intuitive thing and show up as fear. And so really looking at, is it my inner voice telling me no, or really is it fear, which is preventing me from getting hurt again? Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, what is that called? Evolution. I don't know the scientific names, but I mean, we were born with these innate abilities, and, sometimes we listen and sometimes we don't.
That's right.
But so I would say that having confidence in some circumstances or some situations, but not others, we know our stuff, whatever our stuff may be. And so we feel good and we're going to sally forth and we're just going to take charge and take over the world. But on the other hand, this new situation or something comes up, and how do we take this secret sauce and transfer it over here so that we're, wholly confident? I don't know if that's the right term, but how do we transfer that good feeling or that ability here and to something over here? How do we sustain that and make it cross over?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to, I mean, we feel really confident when we know our stuff, and that's because we've practiced it over and over. We've done it repeatedly, right? So when we do new things, we don't feel so confident. It really is about sticking to our commitments and following through and doing it over and over again, and to continue and to stick to it, right? It's about commitment. Is it something that you really want to do? And again, right, it's the repeat process, and we keep getting better and we keep learning more things about it, and it becomes more comfortable, right? They talk a lot about your comfort zone. And so you have your comfort zone, and then you have the risk zone, which is outside of there, where we may not feel as good, right? Then there's the die zone, where like it feels super risky and you're afraid to do it. Mm-hmm. But the more we do things that scare us or bring up fear or areas of where we feel maybe incompetent or inadequate, the more we stretch that, the bigger our comfort zone gets and the more confident we become in all things. Even when we're scared, if we have a really high level of confidence in the way that we show up in the world and the things that we're doing, stepping outside of that isn't going to feel as risky. And when we've done a lot of our own inner work, we're going to give ourselves more grace for making mistakes, because you got to be a beginner at some things. Like, you can't be a pro at everything, right?
Very much a lather, rinse, repeat.
Yes, very much so.
So, situational differences notwithstanding, what are some ways that women can begin to feel or otherwise become more confident? I mean, we have to start somewhere. So if you're starting with, I don't know, maybe how you, when you first interact with your clients, what is well, that won't work because it's all different. But anyway, you look at situational differences, but we have to start somewhere. What is the starting place for women?
The starting place with all clients and that I work with is writing acknowledgements. And what that looks like is an acknowledgement recognizes, what did you do well today? Or what did you do today, right? There's no beating yourself up in this exercise. So I give my clients the assignment to write 5 acknowledgements every day. Mm-hmm. So it starts with, today, I acknowledge myself for making healthy food choices, right? Exercising, getting up on time, because it makes me feel great. I'm more productive in the day. And the process of acknowledgements we start really simple, and then we start elaborating on it. So not only what was it that you did, how did it make you feel when you did it, right? So it starts anchoring that feeling, because that's usually where people go. How do I feel when I walk into a room, right? Like, what's that feel like? And then to stretch it even more to, like, what's the result of that acknowledgement? So for example, we'll say, like, I want to acknowledge myself today for making a healthy food choice. I have more energy during the day and I get more work accomplished. So it really is like that full process, and it is multi-layered. Mm-hmm. I really encourage my clients to embody like the feelings and the sensations that happen when you are in that moment, because oftentimes you can go back to when you're not feeling very great about what's going on, having the memory of something that felt really good. If you can envision yourself there again and bring in that feeling, it can be helpful in moving you to a more confident place and something you don't really feel so sure about.
So I didn't have this down, but your answer made me want to ask the question.
Okay.
So, when you are, again, so you're anchoring and you're acknowledging progress or things well done, right? Mm-hmm. And your feelings. At the same time, the flip side of that coin is beating yourself up.
Yep.
So how do you not go into this downward spiral? I'm not worthy. Whatever the conversation happens to be, because that is kind of part of the, some people that get on a roller coaster, sometimes it's hard to get off.
Yeah. And that's when my clients, their assignment is, for every time you beat yourself up, 2 acknowledgements. to counterbalance that. Because what ends up happening is when you start the practice of writing acknowledgements every day, and I've done this for years at a time where I write 5 acknowledgements every day, the beating yourself up goes away. Oh. And you start acknowledging yourself more and more. You start noticing when you're doing things that feel good. Even if it's even if you're having a crappy day, maybe it's like, today I got up and I showered. I mean, that might be the acknowledgement for the day. And that's okay too, right? It's about learning that it's okay to have crappy days, but there's still always something that you can acknowledge yourself for, right? Did you drink water today? Did you sit upright in your recliner? Because it's just, there are things that you can still acknowledge yourself for. And that's kind of the antidote to the beating yourself up, and about giving yourself permission to write those acknowledgements. Because people get stuck there too. Like, I don't even deserve to write an acknowledgement because I didn't do anything today, right? The whole beating yourself up. So and there have been times where, to add that extra layer of accountability, having them have an accountability partner, or even to send a text message with a picture of their acknowledgements that they've done, right? So having an accountability partner can be very helpful as well.
Yeah, sometimes that self-talk, she's not very nice.
She's not very nice. No, and sometimes, and I'm like, she's right here. Sometimes I have to tell her to go sit down. I don't need her help right now. I know it sounds kind of silly, but sometimes we have to do that, right? Like, I don't need your assistance. Thank you very much.
Pardon the segue. What is that? So there is a Zillow commercial with the woman sitting around with her different personalities. Have you seen that? And so when you're telling her to go away, that totally brought to mind that visualization. It's like, all the many facets of ourselves, they can be very interesting conversations. All right. So is there a go-to crunch time strategy that you can give women? Let's just say something unexpected happens. And I'm going to say maybe it's a new stretch opportunity. So this is a positive, but how can women get into the zone?
I think, stopping to take a breath, right? Because sometimes we like just want to like jump into things and get them taken care of, right? Take a minute, give yourself time to drink some water, take a breath, put some lipstick on, right? Give yourself the time to get recentered. I think that's really important, because then what happens is all of those other things quiet down. Mm-hmm. And then you can make a much more powerful and empowered start to what's going on, and I think that there's always time. It may not always feel like it, right? But there's always time for us to take a breath and to give ourselves a little bit of grace and space, because I think that that's really important for us to perform at our peak, to do our best job, to stay focused, to stay committed. That's another thing too, is you can ask yourself the question, like, what am I committed to? Because sometimes that also can be a helpful tool in bringing you back to center. Is what am I committed to?
That's very helpful. The centering and the commitment. Those are two, I would say, key strategies that women can really grasp onto. So thank you.
You're welcome.
But I'm going to say now, in an interesting plot twist, your website mentions that being more confident improves relationships. And this isn't something that I thought about as being related. So I'm wondering if you can expand on that a bit.
Sure. When we're more confident, our relationships are better, because what happens is we have the courage to have the difficult conversations, or we have the courage to say, to put boundaries in place that maybe we wouldn't have in the past, right? Or to say to somebody, that doesn't really work for me, or you really hurt my feelings. Can we talk about that? When we lack confidence, we become people pleasers. We take things on that aren't ours. We compromise ourselves. And when we're more confident, we don't do that. We show up for ourselves. We feel more powerful and have more strength and resiliency to show up in a different way. So it's easier to say, yes, I can do this for you, but here are the parameters for me saying yes, rather than the automatic yes. One of the check-in questions you can always ask yourself too when it comes to those kinds of choices is everything you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. So it could be a person, right? You could be saying yes to being the PTA president, but what are you saying no to? You might be saying no to family time. You might be saying no to your personal time, time with your friends, right? There are a lot of things. So asking yourself, if I'm saying yes to this, what am I saying no to? Because there's always one and the other. So it's a great check-in question. But I think to answer your question specifically, when we have more confidence, we have the courage to have the conversations that are important in having great relationships, whether it's with our kids, our family, our partners, our business peers, all of those different areas.
That's huge. Awesome. So I'm wondering, how would you say that your training and certification has helped you be a better coach?
Well, the first and foremost thing is in the training that I had, we had to do our own personal work first before we embarked on the journey of becoming a coach. So, we had to go to the workshops that we did our own personal in-depth work. We had to work with a coach specifically to be working with the skills and the tools of fearless living so that we could really anchor that. And I think one of the things that it really helps in being a good coach is having had the experience, having all the languaging down, right? Being able to share specific examples of how the skills and tools worked for me has been very, very helpful. And there was something else I was going to add to that and it just escaped me. But I think the most important thing is doing the work myself gives me a really good perspective of what it's going to be like for my clients. Now, not everybody has the same experiences, but at least it gives me a little bit of insight into what it might be like for them. And so then I might have some more intuitive hits on listening to the things that are not said and listening to the language that's being used, the pauses, right? Or when somebody talks really, really fast, there's all of those different cues that happen. And so that's part of what I learned in my training. And I learned that about myself. So that really helps me be a better coach for sure.
Well, that is good to hear. That's awesome. Some very good insights, right? Welcome all in my moccasins. All righty. Well, I hope that wasn't too painful. That was actually 10 plus questions. So good for you. But any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would just say, take a look at the areas that scare you a little bit and look at how you can have a greater commitment to achieving the goals and the dreams that you really want to achieve. You can have everything that you want and really, look for the support that you need because, there are so many ways other people can support you in you achieving the things that you want to. And you are more powerful and more smart than you give yourself credit for.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
And that, my dear, has been 10 questions and the expert answers that can change your life. Now, I know that our listeners are going to have questions and they're probably going to want more information. So if you could tell them how to find you and, of course, how to find you on social media, but how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. They can always visit my website, which is debbieternes.com. Always available via email. And my email address is Debbie Ternes with the letters CFLC @gmail.com. And my phone number, would you like my phone number as well?
That's up to you.
Okay. It's 707 477-8015. So feel free to call me, leave a message, text message me. That would be great. I would love to hear from you and would love to connect. Also I'm on Facebook with my same name and on Instagram as well.
That is super awesome. You've been very generous with your intel and with your coordinates, my dear. So I don't know about that. But thank you so much. It's been lovely chatting with you, and I will see you on the other side. Take good care.
Excellent. Thank you.